Welcome back in overdue at July 3rd edition of Bird 365, joined now by Brandon Lee Gowton, BLG. What's going on, BLG?
Doing good, guys.
Good to see you, Brandon. And we'll kind of factor this in over at Bleeding Green Nation. You did your over-unders 25. I see you did it with Bo, our good buddies at PHLY. You were filling in there. And what we'll talk about your guys and your over-unders, which are a little bit more fun than the traditional over-unders. But I'm sure you got that email that I got yesterday about the quarterback over-unders in Vegas. I was stunned at the numbers for Jalen Hurts and the perspective of, boy, it looks like an opportunity to make easy money if you look at his recent history. Particularly, they had him at 550 rushing yards, over under 9.5 touchdowns, BLG. I mean, this is a guy he was near 800 back in 2021, well over 700. Last season, with the knee problem, he was still over 600. He had 15 touchdowns, rushing touchdown, 13 the year prior, 10 the year prior. What am I missing here? What are they thinking out in Vegas other than Kellen Moore's changing this offense?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game when it's like seems too good to be true, right? Against the sports books. What do they know that I don't know?
Exactly. That's what I was at. Like, what do I don't know here?
Yeah, that's suspicious. That is surprising. Looking at those numbers compared to his career numbers here that I just pulled up too. I mean, you would most people would be signing with the over on that. I expect Jalen Hurts to be more involved with his legs than he was last year, like you said, John, just because in part because I think he'll be, knock on wood for his sake, a bit healthier than he was last year. And he's still only 25. It's not like, that's going away, that part of his game entirely. So yeah, that's surprising to me too.
Yeah. It's crazy. And then even the passing numbers, 3,500 yards, which he's been well north of over the past two seasons. The touchdowns were right in the 22.5 range, which is where he's been.
Yeah. And
the interceptions, 11.5, understandable because of the spike in interceptions last year. But even because I add the passing number into it, BLG, and I say, well, the passing's coming down as well. And if the passing and the rushing comes down, the only way I can get there is if they're a run-heavy team with Saquon Barkley. Is that what Vegas is thinking the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be? And if they are, I don't like that.
I think that's only the way that looks as if, they're really good again, like they were in 2022, where they're salting away big leads late in the game. And then obviously their pass run ratio is a little bit more favor of the run in that case because, game script and whatnot and things going favorably for them. But I mean, the passing numbers, like you said, mostly sound about right. I expect the interceptions to come down from 15, which they were last year after, the previous seasons. He was at 6, 9, and 4, and then as a rookie. So yeah. And I think, look, for all the questions about Jalen Hurts, I do think, when we talk about the red zone specifically, maybe those rushing numbers come down a little bit because he has more success as a passer. But that's the only thing I would see.
Yeah, the problem with that, BLG, is that they only have the passing numbers at 3,550 and 22 touchdowns. It's like you would think if the rushing numbers went down, he would start to throw the ball more, which really just to me seems like they're just trying to take the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands in this projection. But BLG, just an overall question, because the other thing Johnny Mack and I were talking about this week is the NFL left the Eagles off the top 10 offenses list. They had the Colts on there. Like, are we drinking the Kool-Aid in Philly too early on Jalen Hurts? It seems like the national media and people outside the city just aren't as sold on him. I can't think of another reason why they wouldn't be in the top 10 offenses of the NFL. Are we drinking the Kool-Aid too early on Jalen Hurts?
I can't agree with that ranking. And not to say that there isn't some level of skepticism to be warranted with the Eagles offense and look, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown have been incredibly healthy the past couple of years. Are you going to get that luck again?
Right.
Dallas Goedert, didn't have the year that people thought he would last year, and he's getting older. Hurts, obviously, we covered. There's question marks, offensive line. Sure, but relatively speaking, I still think so many teams would trade to have the Eagles skill players, especially on offense. And even though there are questions as well with the offensive coordinator and whatnot, I just think the floor for that group, because they're so talented, is high. And I think that ranking is it's tough for me to believe the Eagles don't have a top, fourth of the league offense. They should be probably, top 8.
Yeah. And they were 8th last year. So,
right.
I mean, and people thought they stunk.
Yeah, the whole ranking was weird though. The Eagles weren't on it, the Ravens weren't on it, the Cowboys weren't on it. All 3 of those teams were top 8 offenses in the league last year.
I want to clarify that we're talking about one guy at NFL
Media.
It's
true.
I mean, I always say about list season BLG, if you don't like it, just go to the next one and you'll find something you do like.
Good point.
Eventually. But I do think, some people maybe in the national media in this dead period, I called it a dead awakening. I don't know if it's because the Billies are so good and the Sixers just got Paul George to add to the mix, and people are starting to realize, hey, the Eagles aren't the best team in town. I mean, that's the Billies, and probably aren't the best team in the NFL. I think the national media may be catching up to that. Not to say they're not a good team if everything falls correctly, but there are some holes. I think it's more about that than the ceiling isn't there. I think the ceiling is there, but there's also the possibility that things can go wrong. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times for a really bad season, people don't expect that bad season to happen by any means, at least in Eagles history, in recent Eagles history.
Yeah.
In 2020, which is obviously, a strange year with COVID and everything. But, coming off of that 2019, Carson Wentz looks good at the end of that season run. No one's saying like, oh, the Eagles are going to be a disaster next year. And the coach who just won the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago is going to get fired. The only Super Bowl winning head coach in Eagles history. So, yeah, I mean, you always have to consider things can get bad in a big way much more quickly than you would ever expect. That has to be acknowledged, that the downside there exists. But again, ultimately, when it comes to this team, especially the offense, I think the talent, I believe in the talent. And just, I feel like the talent is too good. It doesn't guarantee they're going to win the Super Bowl, but it does give you a feeling that they're going to be competitive, and they
have a high floor. They have a high
for optimism.
Floor.
Yes.
Yeah. I definitely think we're not going to have a disastrous season, so nobody has to concern themselves with that in Philadelphia. All right, let's go over to bleedinggreennation.com. PLG and our buddy Bo Wolf are going head to head with the over-unders. I want to start because, again, I get accused of being a Saquon hater all the time, BLG, all the time. And Xander happened to ask me this question earlier in the week. And I have Saquon Barkley over everybody. We asked multiple guests, what's Saquon going to do? And all these people think Saquon is the second coming. And I'm like, hey, temper, he's not as good as you think he is. But I got him at 1,300 rushing yards. I got him 350 receiving. That's a lot of scrimmage yards. You and Bo placed it at 1,263.5, and BLG went under. Give BLG the hate mail.
Yeah, I've got no shortage of that when it comes to Saquon. And to be clear, that number is what DeAndre Swift had last year from the yards of scrimmage.
Yes.
And DeAndre Swift had a Pro Bowl season. He was top 5 in rushing yards. Like that was a good season. And I just don't know how. Even if we're saying, Saquon's going to be good for this team, and again, I don't think he's going to be bad. Is he going to be? Can he outpace DeAndre Swift? Of course, he can do that. But I'm not ready to assume that's definitely going to happen. Obviously, there's some injury concern baked into
based on health. I'm assuming health.
That's baked in there. I'm not. I think part of it too is that The rushing, I can buy the rushing production being there, especially if they're a good team, like we talked about, the game script going in their favor. Yeah. But I have questions still about him being truly this, big factor in the passing game. And I'm not really like buying into that part as much until I see it.
Yeah, that's funny though. Yeah. So BLG, you think rushing and passing for Saquon is going to be under 1263?
I'm taking the under on it. I think that's the side I have to lean. I've been on
the record. How
would
you break it down though? Like, how would you do 900 rushing and a couple hundred passing? Would it be 1,000 and 100? How would you break it down?
Yeah, so Swift was at 1,049 rushing yards, and then he was at 214 receiving yards. I think that part, I do think, again, Saquon has the potential to go higher. But we're talking about, as we do most times with Saquon, a quarterback who doesn't necessarily love throwing to the running backs. So I have questions about that. Again, I feel good about, I think he's a good bet to get to 1,000, but I don't know how much further he's going beyond that. I would think they're going to ride him hard after giving him that big contract, but as we've seen, the Eagles still typically
like
to rotate.
Kenny Gainwell too,
yeah,
by the way.
Drafted Will Shipley.
That in. Yeah.
So I'm just, there's a level of this for me where I need to see it before I fully believe it.
Yeah.
BLG,
I agree, but here's the thing, BLG. Sorry, Xander.
No, you're good.
Xander loves Saquon. Bill Colarulo, our buddy from 97.5, he's like, Saquon's this, Saquon's that. And then when you boil them down, they're like, yeah, he's not going to do that much. And I'm like, I'm with you. I'm like, yeah, he's not going to be that big of a deal in the passing game. But I kind of look at Miles from 2 years ago and I say, well, if you're what people say you are, even a motor, you're going to be above that if you're healthy. And I think Miles had 1269. And then I'm talking, 300 passing yards. That's not great. You got to be a little bit better than DeAndre Swift, and everybody's under it. I'm just amazed, and I'm the hater. So I'm bringing my personal business, which I shouldn't do. So I want to get it back on track with BLG. Another one I find interesting that you guys did, and again, everybody check it out at bleedinggreennation.com, is the receivers and the combined percentage of the Eagles' total receiving yards. And you guys put it at 60.9, all AJ, all Devontae, all the time. You went over, Bo went under. Why'd you go over?
I just think that, they're just by far and away the Eagles' best receivers. And, we're including the entire passing offense, but still,
Dallas, yeah.
I think those guys are so dominant. They're in their prime. Knock on wood. Again, they've been healthy. They should be able to stay healthy based on, there's no really big track record of injury with those guys. And Jalen Hurts loves throwing to them, as we've seen in practice. He loves targeting those guys.
Is it a good thing though?
Yeah, I don't want to be like, maybe Alshon Jeffrey, or at least what was believed to be Alshon Jeffrey, and say too much Zach Ertz or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think there is, and it's hard to say like it's a bad thing when you throw to your very best players all the time. But I do think there are some opportunities where Hurts can probably mix in an occasional target to someone else, in part just because to keep the defense honest. There were times last year when some of those guys were just wide open, and then he wouldn't even throw their way. And maybe it's good to just take the free yards at some points. But overall, I think they are Devontae and AJ are the engine of the offense, of the passing game, and I expect that to continue.
BLG, I want to talk Nolan Smith with you. You guys had the over under at 3.5. You went over. Bo went under. I'm taking under, but the context I want to add is, and me and John have been talking about Nolan a lot this week. It's interesting. He was taken in the same draft in the first round with Jalen Carter, right? Both of them are taken at positions of need in a way. And this last year, the Eagles lose Hassan Reddick and they lose Fletcher Cox. The Eagles did not go out and sign a big name to replace Fletcher Cox because Jalen Carter is taking that role. They lose Hassan Reddick and they feel the need to replace him with Bryce Huff. Does that say a lot about how they feel about Nolan Smith? I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, but ideally your first round edge rusher would replace the guy that's the most productive on the edge. Doesn't look like he's done that. What's your expectation for Nolan this year?
Yeah, in a perfect world, I think, he would be the Hassan Reddick successor 1-for-1, but not enough to go off of based on the rookie year, which I think it's, fair to wonder that if he couldn't get on the field more, is that a bad signal for him? I would say, yeah, there's some truth to that. I would also say this coaching staff, one of their weaknesses has been playing the young players. We saw Keely Ringo didn't really get a chance to play until late in the year, and then he showed some promise once he actually got the chance to play. So I would like to see Nolan Smith get the chance to play, and really in a sink or swim kind of thing with him. I mean, like, it has to be, you have to see what you have in him. I know that the coaches are trying to win, but this was a first round pick. He showed some flashes of potential. He had 1.5 sacks, including the playoff game last year. They are hurting for pass rush rotation last year. Like, just play him. You have to find playing time for him. You have to see what he can do. He's a young guy who I think can add some juice to this team in the pass rush department, in that rotation. So I think I believe in him because I liked him coming out. I think he has the mentality to succeed in the NFL, and I think he just needs to be given the opportunity.
Where do you think he falls, BLJ? You had over 3.5.
Yeah, I'm going to say 5 or so. I think he's part of the rotation. It's hard to project he's going to go to double digits or something.
Yeah,
I think that's a massive leap, but I think he can be around 5.
My two favorite categories, probably you guys did. One was your best bet, and that was the percentage of defensive snaps played by Jalen Carter, which was 58%. You both went over. I'm going over. If it's under, that's a bad sign for the Philadelphia Eagles, BLG, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's either an injury or, a very oversimplified way of thinking about it to me is that Jalen Carter is maybe the best player on the team. Certainly, I think the best player on defense. Play him. I know, I'm not saying play him 100% of the snaps. You don't want to wear him out, but I mean,
and by the way, Vic has kind of said that. He's like, we're going to play. He said him and Jordan, we want to play him.
This is why I made this my best bet, which is for Bo and me. We decided to be an extra point for whoever decides that on one of them. And I just think they set the table for this. The Eagles, between Vic Fangio, Jalen Carter himself said, not that he wasn't working on his technique at all, but he was more so working on his conditioning even than anything else about his game. So I think that's just a lock to happen, basically.
Yeah. And right guard, Tyler Steen versus the field. That's a good one. That is a really good one. The Eagles want it to be Tyler Steen. I'm going to go the field. What way did you go?
I'm going to go with Tyler Steen. I do wonder, if he is the right fit at right guard. I think it's possible. Him and Mekhi Becton could end up having the most success switching roles in a way where Becton could be the guard and maybe Tyler Steen would make a really good swing tackle. That just might be a better fit for him.
And by the way, I think he'd be a really good swing tackle.
I agree. Even though he might not have the traditional frame for a tackle.
Yeah.
There might be some concerns in that regard, but ultimately, like you said, John, the Eagles want Tyler Steen to win this job. That doesn't mean he will definitely have it the whole year. Doesn't mean he can't fall out of favor, just like Isaac Samalo did in 2017.
Yeah.
But I do think he's going to get every chance to win it, and therefore I'm going to,
I always go back. Great minds think alike, BLG. I always go back to the Super Bowl season because it started out with Isaac, young player, wasn't what he turned into. Obviously, he's a very good player when he left. Got benched for Chance Warmack, and then they finally settled on Stephen Wisniewski. Who's your whiz this year? Is it Sharping or is it Hennessy? That's Sharping, and I bring that up because that Sharping signing that came out of nowhere for me in June. I'm like, what's going on here? What does that mean? What did Max Sharping, or did it mean anything to you? Because he started 38 NFL games. I was like, what does this mean, Max Sharping being here?
Maybe nothing, but it's a little suspicious. It makes my antenna goes up and makes me think, do the Eagles love what they're seeing out of Tyler Steen and their guard situation, I guess, as a whole, in OTA's minicamp to be making that signing when they did? So I wonder, it could again, but I could also just be like, hey, we love offensive line depth. This is a guy with experience. We lost Sue Opeta. We lost Jack Driscoll. Matt Hennessy and Max Sharping, in theory, could be your new version of those guys for this team. So I don't want to read too much into it. But yeah, it does make me wonder.
BLG, the 25th and final over under was 1.5 in playoff wins. Each of you had the under. Why do you have the under in playoff wins over at 1.5?
I would take the over on half, to be clear. So I do think they're going to win a playoff game this year. And yeah, this is playoff game wins, just to be clear. Again, so not like we're not including a first round. They could get a first round bye and only win one game, and then they wouldn't hit the over on this. And that would still be, like pretty good. Not, the season everyone wants to
title
see.
Game. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It would not be like this disaster of a season by any means, just because I'm taking the under at 1.5. But I think first of all, there's a lot for this team to fix and to prove before they can. I think it's merely assumed they're going to go on this great playoff run again. I think they will be in the mix to do that. I think they will be competitive and have the chance. But I lean on the under, in part because it comes back to Nick Sirianni for me. I just think that in the playoffs, it's going to get more competitive. You're going to need your coach to give you an edge, and I kind of worry about that. Obviously Sirianni has done a great job in the past. The playoff games he did play in outside the Super Bowl were laughers. I kind of wonder about what it looks like more so in a close playoff game with him. And obviously the playoff games against the Buccaneers too. Both of them were also laughers for the most part. So I don't totally have full faith in him, giving the Eagles an edge, being aggressive, doing what he needs to do in a big spot.
At Brandon Gowton, make sure you follow BLG on X, Twitter. Read him at Bleeding Green Nation. Very fun exercise over there. Everybody should check it out. Since we'll end it with the head coach, we haven't talked about him. Nick Sirianni, apologies for sideline behavior.
That was the best one. Wait, for everybody too in the chat, you can play on the thing. You don't have to read.
Polls,
you can put in your input. So it's really a fun thing to do on bleedinggreennation.com.
So it's 0.5, and you and Bo both went over. Which I agree. Yeah, I mean, Nick's going to be Nick at some point. So, yeah, I think it's pretty comfortable. He's going to get to 1. Yeah, I mean, Nick, in a larger perspective, this is why I'm not high on the Eagles season. I just think it's a goofy setup what the Eagles have done here, and I can't get past it. It doesn't make sense on any angle. It's like, what, or get off the pot, Jeffrey. It's like if you want him back, let him be the head coach. Don't half-ass it. I don't like it, BLG.
I think it's fair. I don't think it's a 1-for-1, but the 2020 setup of too many cooks in the kitchen kind of comes to mind a little bit. Where the Eagles were forcing things. I think there's been a little bit too much blame. I know the coordinators from last year, I don't think they were the guys ultimately who had the answers, but to put this season and the collapse entirely on them, I just don't think is fair. Or if it is, it's very convenient to just be like, those guys are gone, so everything's fixed now. That's not the reality to me. Ultimately, again, I go back to, I believe in the talent. I think they're gonna. And also, I like the schedule for them. I think the schedule is very favorable for them in some ways, especially relative to last year, which was not. So I think they're going to take advantage of the schedule. I think they're going to take advantage of the talent edge that they have. You look at the fact that, there has not been a repeat winner in this division. It just feels like fate that they have a good chance to win it. But again, I start to wonder about the ceiling when it comes to Sirianni and some of the other concerns with this team.
I'm going to take the under on the sideline behavior.
That's bold.
Wow.
And here's why. Bold. I think that you're going to see
Dom controlling everything
this year. I think he is going to be a more reserved coach. This is the first time since he's been hired that the hypothetical pie has been stuffed in his face after last year. I know he started 2-5, but the whole team rallied around the planting of the roots and the planting of the seeds and all those different things. And in a way, he found his rhythm and he was comfortable being that extroverted, goofy Nick Sirianni. Well, it all came crashing down last year, and he was in a do this or else type of situation. I think Nick Sirianni is going to be much more reserved on the sidelines this year. Maybe not, but I think we're going to get zero apologies for sideline behavior from Nick Sirianni this year.
I thought you were going the Dom route. Yeah, I thought you were going to go
No,
there.
I'm not. I'm not even going the big Dom route.
I'm surprised you guys didn't go the big Dom route. Any dust ups, big Dom dust ups, maybe 0.5. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, big Dom's keeping Darius Slay from going to Baltimore. Who knew? Who knew how impressive? And he tells me what each day of practice is. So that's how
right.
important Dom is. So,
Right.
Yeah. Good to see you, BLG. Everybody read Bleeding Green Nation. He will not be here next week. Hopefully we get you back the week after. You going on vacation? Anywhere exciting?
Going to Vermont for the week.
Going to Vermont. All right. Enjoy it. You're not going to see the fall foliage, though.
What's in Vermont, BLG? You gotta entertain me. What's in Vermont? You going to a lake house or something?
Yeah, kind of getting out in nature and whatnot. Seeing some friends up there. Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right.
Enjoy it. Off, BLG.
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
We'll see you, bud.
There's BLG joining us on Birds 365. Good stuff from BLG. Make sure you guys go and check out that site. Like I said, you can play along, so it's kind of fun, and it shows you how many people voted with you or against you. So definitely a fun exercise to do going into the Eagle season. Just 8 minutes left to play here on Birds 365. For the remainder of the week, we're going to have no shows tomorrow, no shows Friday. So I hope everybody enjoys their 4th of July. Maybe spend some time with your family, whatever it is you're doing. Grilling out, maybe like Johnny Mac might be, depending on how his cold subsides. So I hope everybody has a really.
What's brutal.
That? You sound a little better today, Johnny Mac. You sound a little better today. Is it going in the right direction for you?
It's going in the right direction, but it's still a pain in the ass. I will say that.
Still not clear, still not out of the weeds yet for Johnny Mac. But again, hope everybody has a great 4th of July. Johnny Mac, anything stand out to you there though from their over-unders? They had some really good, interesting ones.
From their perspective, yeah. I like Tyler Steen versus the field. I think that's going to be interesting. I should have gotten a Bryce Huff 4th quarter sacks. That was a good one. BLG, the pessimist, going under 3. Bo went over. I'm big on Bryce Huff this year, as you know.
Yep.
I think he'll close some games. I take the over there. Undrafted rookie free agents on the roster, 0.5. I'm taking the over because you always want to show off. GMs always want to show off, and they're going to keep one. Eli Ricks last year, Josh Sills, Josh Jobe, Breed Blankenship in 2022. They kept 3. Jack Stoll in 2021. You got to go back to the COVID year where they didn't keep somebody. And then even if you go back prior, you had Nate Herbig, you had Bruce Hector and Trey Tullitt, Corey Clement famously. Always keep a undrafted rookie. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'll always take the over there.
Any chance
GMs like to say, look at me. Yeah.
Any chance it's Kendall Milton?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to keep 4 running backs.
He's my kind of back. That's why I say that. I just want a guy that can.
I've been saying it for years. I want a one-cut runner, but they don't seem to have any interest in that. So I think he's more
Bob
practice.
The running back from Georgia is going nowhere. Bob Brown says. We'll see what they end up.
He'll be on the practice squad, I would think. So yeah, he's probably not going anywhere. But will he be on the initial 53? That's what we're talking about. Probably not. Probably.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing with them. The other guys, that Gabe Hall, I know you brought him up a little bit. I think he could be somebody. I mean, they need depth at that room, so maybe if he can show something.
Yeah, he's a good one. He's a good one. Gabe Hall is a very good one because that's a position where they have an opening, probably. Right. And yeah, he's got some upside. A lot of people thought he'd get drafted. And there's always a surprise because Reed Blankenship was probably last on the list. And look at him now. Spent like $5,000 to get him.
Which in NFL terms is about $1 bill from your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm Andre Sam is probably low man on the totem pole, and I just keep seeing his name. I know he's good friends with CJ. CJ's having um, as a lot of players do this time of year, youth football camp down in Louisiana, I think. But Andre Sam's going to be there. Those two are close. They work out together. I keep hearing his name. Older rookie. They need a safety, and that's where he might factor in, at least as a backup. I'm trying to think of. They don't have a big undrafted class, and that's where BLG is probably playing the odds. They typically have more undrafted guys, but it's a small class, so there's not a lot of opportunities. But I would say Gabe Hall would be the heavy favorite, at least on paper.
John, you know what name has fallen into relative obscurity in the last 2 to 3 weeks?
Who's that?
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I mean,
well, yeah, the fifth round picks as a whole. I
know
mentioned that a couple of weeks.
I mean, they were like it was like fifth round 365 on here for a couple weeks, and now it's like
I mentioned that I try to temper people. I mentioned the absurdity of it,
and they get mad at you in the moment. But I mean, look at where we are now. Yeah. I think he actually has a chance to at least play this year. Maybe not a lot, but at least get on the field if somebody goes down at that linebacker room or whatever. I mean, last year when we started the season, I don't think we thought we would see Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham and all the guys we did at linebacker. So I think it's a chance he plays, but you know, he has fallen into that realm, and I'm wondering.
Very slim chance, I would say. I assume. You know,
going too right here, Mike Fittery. No talk about Jalix Hunt. Yeah, it's funny because Mike, I mean, everybody is expecting Jalix to just be a project. Like nobody cares about him this year, which is really weird. He is a third round pick. I mean, that's a premium pick by most people's standards. And they took a project, and we're not talking.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about him. That's why the Eagles talk about him as a project. Now, if he shows up and he's a natural, maybe Vic will find a role for him.
I like his personality a lot, but that doesn't mean he can play.
And remember, spring work is not for certain positions, and the defensive front is one of those positions. Yeah, so true. All he was doing in the spring is dropping into coverage occasionally, whereas, the coverage players, they get more of the microscope because that's what we're watching. And the same thing with Trevor Keegan on the offensive side. But you see what the Eagles, they brought in Sharping, as we mentioned. Matt Hennessy, he didn't even move. He didn't even take reps at right guard. Then he got hurt. Anaya Smith struggled as well. Yeah, the fifth round picks are no surprise. Going to have to wait.
Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening with all these guys. Rashid Mixon, thanks, buddy, for the super chat. We appreciate your viewership. We appreciate your loyalty to the network. We appreciate it, brother. He says, have a happy 4th, everybody. And I will second that comment. I hope everybody has a beautiful 4th of July, gets to spend some time with whoever it is. Maybe it's just yourself. Maybe it's your family. Whoever you want to spend time with, whoever you want to be around. I hope you have a chance to do that. Sit back, relax, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the sunshine. Hopefully we get some good weather all weekend long, but we will not be back here tomorrow. We will not be back here Friday. We will be back here July 8th, which is next Monday. And then it's a 2-week ramp up, Johnny Mac. We got 2 weeks of shows, and then the Eagles are back. They are back for training camp. And from there, it'll really be a sprint to the starting line, really. With the season right around the corner, summer's going to wrap up quick, and the season will be here before we know it.
Yeah, and for the Birds 365 people, that means the YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel is always there for you.
This is no 365, they say. I get it.
Exactly. So that's what that means, and everybody can check out there if you want to see some Eagles content in your downtime.
Yeah, we'll have no new live shows, but I will try and if I have some time here today, I'm going to try and crank some clips out from this show, from the National Football Show, and I'll try and post some stuff out tomorrow and Friday. Just if anybody's laying around or if anybody's going on YouTube, I will post up some content. Hopefully you guys can watch
and
it.
there you go. Birds 365. That's what it's for. So yeah, but everybody enjoy the weekend. Have a happy holiday. Happy 4th of July, and recharge those batteries because when the countdown begins.
Yep, Johnny Mac, and I'll tell you to do the same. Recharge those batteries. We got the season right around the corner. Good stuff from you, my friend. Good stuff from everybody in the chat. JM, Bob Brown, Suplex, Sam, Twiz, Kevin Savard says, John, good for you. You sound much better. Call Jody and yell at him. That should clear you up even more. It's a good one from Kevin Savard. Mike Bittery, SMD Eagles, Eduardo, Mark, Suplex. We appreciate every single one of you for being here. When I say that, I don't say it. I really mean it. I do appreciate all of you guys for being here. You guys make the network work. You make this show work, so we appreciate it. Slager says, happy birthday, America. Good stuff there. So, Johnny Mac, good 4th to you, brother. Recharge the batteries. Hopefully you have a chance to grow out a little bit. I'll catch you next Monday. All right, man?
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. We will see you next Monday on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.